There are many times in life we see what we want to see, but the Lord tells us to keep our eyes focused on Him. His Word is the lamp to our feet and the light to our path. Member of the Grand Ole Opry with #1 hits like Rose-Colored Glasses, John Conlee was born on a tobacco farm in Kentucky. By the age 10, John had begun singing and playing guitar and later sang tenor in a barbershop quartet. His emphasis has always been on the songs of the lives of everyday, hardworking people and sharing the message of Jesus. This is his story. This is today's Nashville. This is Faith. John, what a blessing it is to sit down with you today here in Nashville. We were invited to the Opry on June 3rd, and it was such a wonderful evening. And I remember you walking out on stage, and you started talking about Jesus. And I looked at my husband, and I said, and he knew exactly what I was thinking. Right. I said, I have got to find out, who represents John, because I wanted you to be on our show. You really have an amazing platform on the Opry, and then you do go up there and share Jesus with the crowd.
Absolutely, for a lot of reasons, and I've been doing it for some time now, because like so many other people, if you listen to the news for over 15 seconds at a clip, you realize what trouble our world is in and our country is in, and consequently we ourselves are in. And I'm convinced that the only answer for that is for us to turn back to our Creator and get Him involved in our everyday lives. So I'd share that not only at the Opry, but I still do a lot of live shows on the road, up to 60 in a year's time, and so we do it there as well.
I just think it's wonderful. We have a mutual friend, and he's always calling me up. It's Frank, and he's been on our show too. And he's like, Terry, what? Here's somebody. And the other day I was talking to him, and I said, we have John Conlee coming on the show, and he's like, John's a friend of ours, and I'm like, Frank, you've kept him a secret from me. And but what a blessing it was to connect with you. I just called and got in touch with you, and so, but it's such a blessing to have you. I want to take you back to the beginning.
Okay.
Where you were raised and how you got into music.
Well, I'm from Versailles, Kentucky, which is now basically a suburb, you might say, of Lexington, 12 miles from Lexington. Raised on a farm there that I still have. I still operate a farm that I was raised on, and I was raised in a house that was built in 1794. George Washington was president when that house was built, so we still have that. But I moved to Tennessee in 1971 after having been involved in several other professions besides the farm. Raised on a farm again until I was through my teen years, my high school years, and worked a lot on the farm. My dad was really into it in a big way. Farming, I consider a career. From farming, I went out of high school into the funeral profession, of all things, because I had a friend who worked there part-time, and he talked about it incessantly and just really piqued my curiosity as much as anything else. But I indeed started working part-time alongside him at the local funeral home, and I learned more about serving people and helping people doing that than I could have with any other, going to college or
Now, were
whatever.
You a believer then, or?
Yes, I was saved at the age of 9. I went forward during a revival at our church in Versailles, and accepted Christ at that point, and was involved in my home church all the time I lived at home. The funeral profession was, again, something that and I'm still licensed to do it. I don't practice, of course, but I could if I wanted to or needed to. And from the funeral profession into broadcasting, radio. Radio is what brought me to Nashville. I got my first job in radio at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
I'm going to stop you right there. So you went from the funeral home to broadcast. How did that, I mean, what?
Well, I really was sidetracked into the funeral home, into the funeral profession, because my plan all through high school was to go into broadcasting. I was going to go to UK, University of Kentucky, major in whatever the radio arts department would have been, and then go into radio. That was my plan. But I got, again, sidetracked into the funeral home, although I was supposed to do that. It was a move that I was supposed to make.
But you helped a lot of people grieving and...
Sure, and we also did in those days ambulance service. We're talking in the 60s now. In those days, especially in small towns, funeral homes were the ambulance services most of the time as well. So we were helping sick people and wreck victims and all of that, emergency victims with the ambulance service as well. So we're helping in two different fronts. But I still had that old itch for broadcasting after I'd been at the funeral home for 6 years. And I decided I'm either going to get on into the funeral profession as an owner somewhere or scratch this other itch. And so I picked up the phone, got a job at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and spent 7 years altogether in radio. And 7 of those 9 years in radio were in Nashville at WLAC. The only reason I moved to Nashville was because I got the job at WLAC Radio. I didn't come here for music. Music up until that point had just been a hobby.
Now, were you married at this time?
Or? No, I didn't marry until I was on the backside of 30.
Backside of 30.
Yeah.
So you have a very distinguished voice. I mean, everybody, you see the comments, love your voice. So when you were in broadcasting, you were on the radio announcing and?
Yes, and radio has helped me in so many different ways as far as the music profession is concerned, including the way I use my voice, because if you're using your voice to speak into a microphone where nobody can see you, you have to use your voice in order to be understood and, to emote. To put the emotion out there and so forth. And that influenced the way I use my voice to sing later.
You know, it's interesting, radio. I did radio a little bit years ago, and it was so nice because you didn't have to worry about what you look like or what you had on or anything. And
I've always said I've got the perfect face for radio. It works just really well for radio. And I was never interested in doing television, actually, for a lot of different reasons.
Well, God took you from the radio to the music, and we are going to talk about that when we come back.
Okay.